What if I told you the most hated family in football didn't break the rules, they rewrote them?
You gotta let my brother have his way in the league.
I'm worried about your pop.
What you worried about him for?
I don't follow trends, I set trends. I don't follow styles, I set styles. I never in my life looked at somebody and said, let me see what he got on soccer. No. I make you look down at yourself when you see me.
That confidence and swag right there, they hated it. A Hall of Fame cornerback that flipped the NFL and college world on its head, and now his two sons are coming up trying to do the same thing. And without playing a single down yet, they are already receiving the same hate as dad.
I'm done with the Shador Sanders watch thing.
I mean, let's be honest, you don't like him because he's flashy? Because he has a nice watch better than yours?
I think I'm worried about what critics say or what people gotta say. You know who my dad is? They hated on him too.
This isn't a story about football, it's about pride, pressure, and the price of being loud in a game built on silence. This is how the Sanders became the most hated family in football. But first, we must go back to the beginning.
When I came out of college, I had a choice to be wholesome, say what the fans, audience want me to say, or be me. And I was gonna be me. I was gonna be real.
When Deion Sanders hit the NFL in 1989, it wasn't just another rookie entering the league. It was an event. A 22-year-old kid dripped in gold chains, rocking his own tracksuit, and already talking about himself in third person.
Prime time.
This wasn't just a nickname, it was a brand, a lifestyle, a warning shot, and about how he got this nickname goes back to his high school days.
You gotta earn your nickname, you know what I'm saying? So I earned the right to be called Prime in high school, man, back in, I think it was 84. And I dropped like 36 that night, had a couple dunks back to back, and one of my homies said, hey, Prime, hey, Deion. I said, what's up, man? He said, you prime time. I said, yeah.
This man hadn't played a single down yet, but you knew he wasn't here to blend in. He was here to take it over.
But I was kind of scared. I thought Detroit was going to take me. I would have asked for so much money that I had to put me on layaway.
And almost immediately, the hate started brewing. Old head players, coaches, and fans hated everything about it. See, the NFL back then ran on a tight ship, something called respect for the game. You scored a touchdown, you handed the ball to the ref and jogged back to the sideline, and act like you've been there before. That was the code. But see, Deion, he brought something new to the game. He was dancing, strutting, high-stepping into the end zone, with his gold chains flashing under the stadium lights. To the old traditional players, it was bullshit. They saw a kid who cared more about making himself the show than the game itself. And it wasn't just the dancing, it was the headlines, the magazine covers, the interviews where he flat out said he was built different. Veterans were hating as they watched Deion soak up all the attention like a rock star. Some coaches thought he was a locker room cancer. Even players openly called him selfish. It wasn't enough that he was good, and he had the audacity to let you know that he knew he was.
I built this, and this is my house. I don't care if I'm with the Falcons or not. This is my house, and this will always be my house.
And that right there made people hate him even more. But just when the football world thought they seen enough, Deion flipped the script again. Not content with dominating one sport, he decided to chase baseball at the same time. One week, he's picking off passes and dancing into the end zone. Then next, he's stealing bases in a Yankees uniform. Some players lost their mind. You can't truly love football if you're a part-time baseball player, they said. He's not serious about either one, but Deion didn't care. See, he was a kid from the inner cities of North Fort Myers, Florida, that grew up with a single-parent mother, and he was trying to make the most money as possible to take care of his people and himself.
Oh, you guys may think I'm crazy, but to tell the truth, I really don't care. I'm going to play football or baseball, and I'm going to play both, and I don't know which one's going to get the priority. I really don't care because I love my teammates in football, I love my teammates in baseball, and I'm going to be happy.
Is that your first love, baseball?
No, football is my first love.
Yeah.
Sports only lasts till you're about 30 years old, then you're done with it. And I want to accumulate as much money as I possibly can so I can.
And speaking of all that money he made, he showed out with it. We're talking about lots of jewelry, fast cars, even a custom golf cart to drive around practice in.
That cart had air conditioning, it had an ice chest for my yoo-hoos, the back let down so a couple of other teammates could ride, the top let down to a convertible. That cart was before its time.
The critics didn't question his commitment, they questioned his entire respect for sports themselves. To them, Deion was a talented sideshow, a guy trying to have it both ways without truly respecting the grind. But if you think the media was going to slow down, not a chance. Deion became a walking headline machine. Every designer suit, every cocky soundbite, every ridiculous touchdown celebration, the cameras couldn't get enough. And every time Deion leaned into it, the resentment grew louder. He once bragged about getting a contract with so many zeros, you would have thought it was the alphabet soup.
Sanders with his family after signing a 5-year, $35 million deal with an almost $13 million signing bonus.
When you guys say, is he worth it or that's too much money, it could have been greater. But I truly wanted to be a Dallas Cowboy.
That wasn't just confidence, that was fuel to the fire. By the early 90s, the lines were drawn. If you loved excitement, style, and someone fearless enough to bet on himself, you was rocking with prime time. But if you cared about tradition, about team first, about quiet hard work, you hated everything he stood for. There was no middle ground. But Deion wasn't trying to fit in. He was building his own empire, gold chains, end zone dances, baseball dreams and all. And whether you loved him or hated him, you couldn't take your eyes off of him. But see, now this is only the beginning, the birth of the football's flashiest villain, and the start of the Sanders family's long, rocky relationship with the game they were about to flip upside down. After retiring from the league in 2006 and spending his next couple years coaching up Shedeur and Shiloh from Little League to high school, once they graduated, he had the opportunity to go to the next level. And when he announced that he was taking the head coaching job at Jackson State University in 2020, it didn't just make headlines, it shook the entire college football world.
You got to believe that we can do the unthinkable. You got to believe that we can accomplish the unattainable. You got to believe it. I'm gonna ask you one last time. Do you believe?
He was one of the biggest names the sports world had ever seen, signing up to be a coach for a HBCU program that most folks outside of the SWAC barely even talked about. But for Deion himself, he was going to take this job seriously, and he wanted people to take him seriously as a coach as well.
Hey, Deion, I was just wondering if you could...
Hold on, let's back up a little bit. You don't call Nick Saban Nick. Don't call me Deion now, okay?
I call Nick Saban Nick.
That's a lie. If you call Nick Nick, you know you get cussed out on the spot, so don't do that to me. Treat me like Nick. Forget the prime. It's just a big deal out of coach. I'm from the old school, man. We grew up respectful and honorable.
But right from the jump, a lot of people were side-eyeing it. Was Coach Prime really uplifting Jackson State, or was it just another move to grab attention, build his brand, and bounce the minute a bigger school called? The skeptics were loud, and honestly, you couldn't blame him. He had no college coaching experience, his energy was electric, sure, but many believe deep down, he wasn't at Jackson State for the long haul. He was there for the headlines. From day one, there was this lingering feeling Prime was chasing something bigger, and JSU was just a launching pad. But then, he started winning, and winning big. Coach Prime didn't just bring the cameras and flash, he brought results. In his first 2 full seasons, Jackson State dominated, going 11-2 and 12-1, locking up conference championships, selling out games, and putting HBCU football back on the national map. Every week, it felt like the spotlight got a little brighter. College game day pulled up, ESPN couldn't stay away, donations started pouring in. But with all that success came more hate. People who once said he wouldn't win started moving the goalposts. Sure, he's winning, they said, but is it about the school or is it all about Prime? The better JSU got, the louder the whispers grew. Is he building up the program or is he building up his next big move? And if the haters were mad before, oh, they really lost their minds about the Travis Hunter news. See, if you didn't know already, in 2021, Deion did the unthinkable. He flipped Travis Hunter, the #1 overall recruit in the country, away from Florida State, his own alma mater, and brought him to little old Jackson State. And it was one of the biggest recruiting shocks the college football world had ever seen. 5-star recruits didn't go to HBCUs, period. At least, not until Prime made it cool. And man, the backlash was nasty. Analysts cried foul, accusing Deion of using his fame to steal talent from schools where players were supposed to go.
A rule right now that says you cannot use name, image, and likeness to entice a player to come to your school. Hell, read about it in the paper. I mean, Jackson State paid a guy $1 million last year that was a really good Division I player to come to school. It was in the paper and they bragged about it.
The message was loud and clear. A player like Travis Hunter didn't belong at Jackson State. To the old school powers, Prime had broken an unwritten rule and they hated him for it. But it wasn't just about the outsiders throwing shade. Even inside the HBCU community, tension started bubbling up. After a heated 2022 game against Alabama State, things boiled over. Eddie Robinson Jr., Alabama State's head coach, straight up refused to shake Deion's hand after the game, telling reporters, "He ain't swag, I'm swag," and it went viral immediately.
He ain't swag. You know, I'm swag, he ain't swag.
I listen very carefully when people are upset because usually what they say, they mean it. And one of the comments that kind of disturbed me out of all the comments, that I'm not swag. Who is? I got time today. If I ain't swag, who is swag? If I ain't swag.
Eddie basically said what a lot of folks had been thinking, but hadn't said it out loud. Deion wasn't really one of them. To some, Prime was just playing dress up in the swag culture, using it as a stepping stone, not living it. And the he ain't swag moment became a rallying cry for everyone who never truly accepted Deion into the HBCU family. Now, if you want a full breakdown about how wild the Jackson State era was, trust me, I have 2 whole videos on that. Feel free to check those out if you haven't already. They are a whole movie by themselves. But for now, just know the skepticism that started the moment Prime signed the dotted line, it only got louder when he made his next move. By late 2022, the rumors were swirling heavy that Colorado, a Power 5 program, was knocking on the door, and when Deion officially took the job, the backlash hit full throttle. To a lot of Jackson State fans and HBCU supporters, it felt like betrayal. They called him a sellout, said he used black culture, black pride, black struggle, and dipped the second the PIW wrote a bigger check.
The reason I'm so personally disappointed in Deion is I thought he was there for a movement, not for money. I'm blaming black men for not being men. But you know what? I'm blaming us for not being men. That was an unmanly move.
Deion was sent to Colorado to make a statement that every one of them ninjas got a price. Find his and pay him off.
We were asked to believe, and we did. So happens some of it turned out to be bullshit.
Now, in fairness, a lot of people defended him too. They pointed out how much money, attention, and opportunity he brought to Jackson State. And no matter what, the program was better off than when he found it.
He had such a great impact on a smaller university. I understand we only live in this life once. Sometimes you have to take those opportunities when they come.
But the damage was done. In the eyes of many, Coach Prime had officially shifted from hero back to villain. And trust me, the real villain era, it was just getting started. The next stop, Boulder, Colorado, where he took the drama, the cameras, the hate, and the primetime brand to a whole new level. And you already know, things only got wilder.
When people are hurt, oftentimes their first response isn't the response that should be given.
After he touched down in Boulder, Colorado, Cold Mountains, Power 5 program, mostly white school, and a football program coming off a pitiful 1-11 season, Deion didn't flinch. In fact, he walked into the first team meeting with cameras rolling, looked those players dead in their eyes and said,
"We got a few positions already taken care of because I'm bringing my luggage with me. And it's Louis."
In translation, none of y'all are safe. And just like that, the Prime effect took hold. What followed was the most savage roster purge college football had ever seen. Nearly 70 players gone from the team, gone from the locker room, gone from the school. Coach Prime didn't just rebuild, he detonated and started from scratch. To his supporters, it was bold leadership. To his critics, it was cold, calculated, and proof that Deion didn't care about young athletes unless they could boost his brand. Old school football folks were appalled. This ain't how it's done, they said. But Prime had never played by their rules anyway. And just when the critics were getting comfy, Colorado started winning. Like I said earlier, if you want the good side of things, go check out these 2 vids. But the more attention Deion got, the more the haters popped up. Every win felt like a celebration, and every word out of Deion's mouth felt like a shot at the old heads.
We coming. We told you we coming. You thought we was joking. And guess what? We keep receipts. God bless you, America.
The real heat attention came back around during the Colorado State rivalry week. Their coach, Jay Norvell, took a jab at Deion, saying,
"I said, when I talk to grown-ups, I take my hat and my glasses off. That's what my mother taught me."
This was aimed right at Deion's signature style, something he's been doing since way back in the day.
Take your hat off, take your shades off, huh?
But see, Prime saw this and turned it to fuel. It's personal, he told his players, and suddenly a regular football game had the feel of a heavyweight fight. And of course, never being the ones to start it, but the ones to finish, Colorado went on to win this game in double OT. But it didn't stop there. Next up, Oregon, and that's when it got real. Coach Dan Lanning stood in front of his squad before kickoff, cameras rolling, and said,
"The Cinderella story is over, man. Right? They're fighting for clicks, we're fighting for wins."
That speech went viral before the first whistle, and when Oregon destroyed Colorado 42-6, critics came crawling back out of the woodworks. They said the hype was over. They called Deion a fraud, and the same people who stayed quiet when Colorado was undefeated now were loud when they failed.
I told you leading up to this week, don't feed into the hype. What'd y'all do? Look at that. They have more points than Colorado has yards in one half.
From that point on, the hate was turned up to 100. Every loss got more coverage than every win. Every press conference became a landmine. Local reporters started beefing with Deion. He even banned one from asking questions. Writers calling it the Prime Circus. To them, Deion wasn't coaching a football team. He was running a show, and he was the star. But one thing stayed consistent through it all. Deion defended his family. When people criticized his sons, Shador and Shiloh, Deion fired back. He was protecting them publicly, loud, and sometimes even emotionally. And look, on one hand, that's what a good father does. I'm sure we all have heard or saw how LeBron checked Stephen A about Bronny this past NBA season. But on the other hand, it gave critics ammo. They said it was nepotism, that Prime couldn't take real criticism. Every time Shedeur held the ball for too long or Shiloh missed an assignment, the blame went anywhere else. Then the narrative started to shift from Coach Prime gets building something to Coach Prime just wants to protect his own. To some, he was the revolution college football needed, bold, unapologetic, transformational. But to others, he was tearing down tradition with a smile and a camera crew. But love him or hate him, one thing was undeniable. He changed the game, he flipped the model, and he brought the NFL energy to the college sidelines, and wherever he went, everybody had something to say. But see, that's just one part of the story, because now it's not about Deion anymore. It's about his sons, Shedeur and Shiloh. They didn't just inherit the spotlight, they inherited the hate. And in this next chapter, we're diving deep into how these two brothers are carving out their own paths, carrying both the pressure of greatness and the burden of the Sanders name. So stay locked in. It all started with video game-like numbers. At Jackson State, under the lights of his father's program, Shedeur wasn't just good, he was dominant. He led the Tigers to a 23-3 record in 2 seasons, won the Jerry Rice FCS Freshman of the Year, SWAC Offensive Player of the Year, and shattered expectations week after week. But even with all that, the national reaction wasn't celebration, it was skepticism. This is FCS competition. Those stats don't count. The talk was loud. Shedeur could ball, but only because he wasn't playing against real teams. Forget the records, forget the accolades. To many, he was still just Deion's son, getting reps in a watered-down league. But that was just the first sign that no matter what Shedeur accomplished, respect wouldn't come easy. Then came Colorado. When Coach Prime took the job up in Boulder, it wasn't a question if Shedeur was coming. And sure enough, in his dad's very first meeting with the team, when he told them that he was bringing his luggage, of course he meant his son, and he was going to be the starter from the jump.
Yeah, quarterback is coming. Yep, about 10 more of them coming. And they dogs.
And just like that, no competition, no suspense, the nepotism chatter exploded. Critics said he broke his own rule, no starting jobs guaranteed, by handing the keys to his son. Sports talk shows lit up. Rival fans hackled with daddy boy chants. Even though Shedeur proved himself at JSU, the optics fed the narrative. The Sanders family is running a business, not a football team. But then came the silencer, game 1 of the 2023 season, Colorado versus TCU. Shedeur dropped 510 passing yards on a ranked opponent in his very first FBS start. It was surgical, calm, cold-blooded.
Remembering that you was just an HBCU kid that couldn't do it on the Power 5 level. That's really what it was. I don't forget anything. I don't forget what anybody ever said.
He backed it up again against Nebraska, then again in the thriller versus Colorado State. And just like that, the haters went quiet for a minute, because the minute the losses rolled in, so did the backlash.
I'm gonna say it. Shedeur Sanders is the most overhyped quarterback prospect ever.
As Colorado's O-line crumbled and the offense stalled, Shedeur started catching heat, not just for his play, but for his leadership. After a tough loss to Nebraska in the 2024 season, he made a comment that many took as a shot at his own offensive line.
How many times the Rowley get touched? Whenever you're able to run the ball consistently, then that opens up the pass, you know? But it's just like you got to understand like what your team good at.
He will throw anybody and everybody under the bus to make him look good.
Fans said he threw his O-line under the bus and that he lacked maturity. And suddenly, every post-game moment was under a microscope. Was he blaming others? Was he dodging accountability? And because his dad was the coach, those questions hit even harder. Is this really leadership or just entitlement?
Me personally, I don't put blame. I don't throw the blame on players or anything like, because everybody's out there trying their hardest. I am also. So
off the field, Shedeur wasn't hiding. He was living loud and unapologetically, just like his dad was when he played. With this new era of NIL, Shedeur was living good. Enter the Rolex flex. After clutch touchdowns, he tapped his wrist like a watch was theirs. Sometimes imaginary, sometimes real, reminding everyone this was his time. Perfect timing. That celebration went viral. It was cool. It was confident. It was signature.
We call this the Shedeur. The Shedeur.
The Shedeur Sanders. If you ever disrespect this set, the Shedeur.
But not everyone liked it. To some, it was too much, too cocky, too flashy.
I'm done with the Shedeur Sanders watch thing. Going over to a student section and flashing a $70,000 watch. And I don't even know if you have to go into the fact that it's his dad's money because his dad was a superstar.
I mean, let's be honest. You don't like him because he's flashy? Because he has a nice watch better than yours? Better than mine? I mean, that just sounds like hating though to me.
And while guys like Baker Mayfield was praised for their charisma and swagger, Shedeur was labeled arrogant. Same confidence, different perception. One ESPN analyst said it plain and simple: we can't praise Baker for his cockiness and then view it differently with Shedeur. But a lot of folks were viewing it differently, and that difference wasn't just a celebration. It was the name and skin tone behind it. Shedeur could care less. He stayed true to himself and kept his wrist up. This made him a villain in the eyes of many, not because he was failing, but because he was winning the wrong way. By the end of his 2 seasons at Colorado, Shedeur had become one of the most polarizing players in college football. Some saw an NFL-ready gunslinger with elite arm talent. Others saw a son benefiting from his daddy, the prime marketing machine.
I've come out and said there's no way, unless Deion has that much play and clout and pull, that this guy's a first rounder. Here, my obligation is to tell you the truth. He's not that good, homie.
But nothing stirred the pot of mess more than when the news came out that Colorado planned to retire Shedeur's number 2 jersey before he even left campus, because all hell broke loose. Think about it. In 135 years of Buffalo football, they officially honored only 5 numbers, and suddenly they were adding 2 new ones, Shedeur's and Travis's, at once. Alumni and old school buffs went ballistic. Legendary linebacker Chad Brown erupted on social media. If players from the 1990 national championship team hadn't received such an honor, this erases their greatness. The whole thing smelled to many like Coach Prime's marketing a fast-forwarding legacy to feed hype. Deion even had to address it directly, saying if his last name wasn't Sanders, we wouldn't even be having this discussion.
We talking about Shedeur. We ain't talking about nobody else. But his last name wasn't Sanders, we wouldn't have this discussion. It's been so many things accomplished at this university expeditiously. It's been unbelievable.
He knew what everyone was thinking. Shedeur's accomplishments on the field were real, but the timing of this honor felt like a product placement for the Sanders brand.
If I threw the ball every fucking down in college, I would break records too.
In the end, the jersey saga fed exactly the narrative his critics feared, that his reputation was being inflated as part of the primetime show and not just earned by his play. While most of the headlines were aimed at QB1, his older brother was quietly building his own reputation. One hit, one smirk, one soundbite at a time. If Shedeur was the face of the offense, Shiloh was the pulse of the defense. And he came with that same unmistakable prime DNA. Confidence, flash, and no interest in keeping quiet. From day one, Shiloh played with an edge. He trash talking warm-ups. He taunted and danced after big hits and treated post-game whistle moments like part of the show. It wasn't fake, this was just who he was. But for fans already critical of the Sanders family swagger, Shiloh became the easy target, where some saw a passion, others saw a problem. To them, he wasn't playing with energy, he was performing with arrogance, and soon that perception started to stick. Then came the flags. It all started with one hit, a brutal helmet-to-helmet collision early in the 2023 season. It went viral, not for the play, but for the penalty. Targeting, ejected on national TV. From that moment, the whispers turned into labels: dirty player, undisciplined, another Sanders kid who think the rules don't apply. Opposing fans ran with it, and suddenly Shiloh's name wasn't just associated with swagger, it was tied to recklessness. But he defended himself, saying he just plays hard.
Just play my game. If I get in a situation like that, just know it's up to the refs. I won't change like my play style, but still be conscious of, hey, if you can go a little lower to make sure, because you know I got this target on my back too. So it say Sanders. So that's pretty much how I'm thinking.
And see, that's the thing. Deion boys knew they were under a microscope and that any small thing was going to be blown up to the max when it came to them. But Shiloh didn't tone it down. He kept chirping, kept flexing, and kept smiling. After big games, he cracked jokes in interviews and turned up in the locker room with his teammates. He even leaned into the hate sometimes, calling out rivals on social media, laughing at the dirty label like it was just part of the role. But that only fueled the fire. Critics didn't see confidence, they saw a cockiness without resume. See, Shedeur had the stats. Deion had rings and a gold jacket, but Shiloh, he was solid, a playmaker, but he wasn't a superstar. And when you bring the energy of a legend without the numbers to match, people don't call you electric, they call you extra. To the outside world, Shiloh looked like a loud character in Prime Circus. All bark, no bite. Just another Sanders talking loud, dancing on the line between entertainer and athlete. But here's the part that stings a little. Shiloh didn't become the villain because he played dirty. He became the villain because he looked like one, because he talked like one, because he celebrated like like one because he came from that family. And in the court of public opinion, that was enough. His hits were judged harder, his celebrations were seen as taunts, and his confidence was interpreted as ego. He wasn't the villain because he crossed the line, he was the villain because who he was and how he carried it. And that's the tragic irony in the Sanders saga. Deion built a brand of confidence, on flair, on redefining what it meant to be a football star. His sons inherited all of that, the look, the mindset, the fire. But what they didn't inherit was the grace to carry it without criticism. Shedeur had to fight for respect despite his stats, and Shiloh, he had to fight just to be seen as more than just the extra one. But what was about to happen next, not a single soul saw coming for those who cheered for the Sanders family. And this is where the story takes a dramatic turn for the worse, because the real hate for the Sanders brand is being seen publicly, out loud, day after day. At the start of the 2024 season, the hype around Shedeur Sanders was there. He was viewed as the #1 QB in a draft class. He wasn't just Deion's son anymore. He was one of the most talked about quarterback prospects in the country. Towards the season's end, a new name started to surface. Cam Ward, the Miami's quarterback, actually a guy who shared the same trainer as Shedeur. And if you want to hear more about his underdog story, I got you right here. But their names were in conversations as the possible top quarterbacks to go. And many mock drafts had Shedeur going first round, no question. Because it wasn't just his numbers, it was the Sanders aura, the college production, the charisma, the pedigree. He had thrown for nearly 70 touchdowns in 2 years, poised in a pocket with a cannon for an arm. He had the hype, the name, the numbers to back it up, and the league was watching. But as the draft day was getting closer, the spotlight started to feel more like heat, because behind closed doors, teams started getting nervous, not about the talent, but about everything else. See, Shedeur didn't do the process like everyone else. He skipped the traditional NFL combine, didn't run drills, didn't throw next to other QBs. Instead, he waited for Colorado's Pro Day in Boulder. And while that move wasn't oh so bad, the message was felt, we're gonna do it our way. And that's when the silent whispers started. Teams wondered, if we draft Shedeur, are we drafting the quarterback or the primetime production? Then came the interviews, and they didn't help. Anonymous scholars said that Shedeur gave the worst formal interview they'd ever seen.
If you ain't trying to change the franchise or the coach, don't give me. So you should know history repeats itself over and over and over. Whatever franchise want to change their franchise, then there's no doubt who to go with. You'll be a fool not to pick me.
One exec said he made you feel small. Another claimed he came off as entitled.
I think I'm worried about what critics say or what people gotta say. You know who my dad is? They hated on him too.
The message was, Shedeur wasn't humble enough, not grateful enough, too comfortable being Prime's kid, and not desperate enough to prove he belonged. And behind every one of those reports was the shadow of Deion. Because if you know your history, this wasn't the first time Coach Prime shook up the draft boards. Back in his day, Deion told teams flat out, don't draft me unless it's Atlanta.
I was going to be me, and I felt like Atlanta would at least understand me. I had previously told the several teams that were picking prior to not take me. And I said, I'm not going to you, don't draft me, I'm going to play baseball if you do, I'm not going there, I'm not going there.
And he was dead ass serious. This is what he said on his draft day when he thought Detroit was going to take him.
Here, I thought Detroit was going to take me. I would ask for so much money that I had to put me on layaway.
Now in the big old 2025, he was saying the same thing about his son. And he publicly said Shedeur wasn't playing for certain teams, and he meant it.
But you have said that if the right team does not pick him, that you will intervene.
That's who I'm called to dress my son. I know where I kind of want them to go. So there's certain cities that ain't gonna happen.
To most NFL franchises, that was a red flag, an owner-level headache before the kid ever took a snap. Like, this wasn't back in the day. We're in a new age, a new era, and Shedeur isn't near to what his dad was skill-wise. And with that, the tide turned. Suddenly, scouts weren't talking about Shedeur's strengths. They were discussing his flaws. Arm strength is just okay, doesn't use his legs enough, relies on quick release, doesn't stretch the field. They called him a system QB, the kind who excels when everything's designed around him, but might crumble under pressure. The cameras were rolling, the Sanders family was dressed to impress. This was dad in 1989, and this was his son in 2025, shining. The energy was high, the stage was set for the moment. But then the first round came, and it went.
With the first pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, Cameron Ward.
The Jacksonville Jaguars select Travis Hunter.
The New York Giants select Abdul Carter. The Cleveland Browns select Mason Graham. The New Orleans Saints select Kelvin Banks Jr.
No call, no pick, no Shedeur. By the end of the night, 3 quarterbacks had been taken. Shedeur was still waiting.
We all didn't expect this, of course, but I feel like with God, anything possible. Tomorrow's the day. We're going to be happy regardless. Legendary.
Round 2 came the next day. Then round 3, still nothing. Every time a quarterback needy team went on the clock, the draft room got quiet. You could feel the tension rising. Deion pacing, Shedeur forcing a smile. The documentary cameras caught it all. The pauses, the hope, the pain. And at one point, Shedeur's phone buzzed.
Say it one more time for me.
This is Mickey Loomis here, GM of the Saints. I'll take you with our next pick right here, man.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Let's be legendary.
Yeah, but you're going to have to wait a little bit longer, man.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Ready to go. What does that mean?
Damn, it was a prank call. Dead silence followed. By the end of day 2, 5 quarterbacks had gone before him. A kid who was once talked about a potential top 5 pick was sliding, live and in color, and nobody could believe what they were witnessing. And for the first time in his life, the story wasn't hype, it was heartbreak.
What's going on with y'all? What's up with y'all, man? We're here, we're in good spirits, of course. God don't make mistakes.
Then finally, day 3, round 5, pick 144.
This is making no sense for the Browns. They just got Gabriel.
2025
no way.
NFL Draft. The Cleveland Browns select.
Finally, Shedeur Sanders was officially an NFL quarterback. It was joy, but it wasn't pure. The smiles were real, but behind them sat a bruise. That chip on Shedeur's shoulder, it wasn't new, but it got a whole lot bigger. And for the social media reaction, it was kind of split down the middle. Critics said the NFL saw through the Sanders show, that they exposed the hype, that no amount of flash could cover entitlement when it's time to shake hands with grown men. But supporters saw something else. They called it the steal of the draft. They said falling to round 5 was a blessing in disguise. Less pressure, less noise, a chance to grow, to learn, to prove people wrong the hard way. Because in the NFL, it isn't about how you get there. It's only about what you do once you arrive.
The number of where you go don't matter.
They didn't become villains because they lost. They became villains because they refused to bow. The saga of the Sanders family isn't built on failure, it's built on dominance. From day 1, they moved loud, proud, and unbothered. Deion danced through the NFL in gold chains and silk suits, then flipped the coaching world upside down with a camera crew and a mission. And his young ones followed the blueprint to the T, cool under pressure, Rolex flashing, never apologizing for a second of it. Together, they didn't just play football, they challenged the system. And in the sport still clinging to its act like you've been here mentality, that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. To many, they weren't just different, they were disrespectful. A father coaching his son front and center, a quarterback skipping the combine, a locker room ran like a brand. This image as a tight-knit, high-profile family moving as a unit, breaking traditions, building empires, dominating headlines, made it easy for critics to paint them as the bad guys. But the truth is, they were just being themselves, and that's what really made people uncomfortable. Because when you strip away the jersey, the highlights, the story is bigger than stats. This is a culture clash. Old school football is built on silence, sacrifice, and structure, but the Sanders family didn't come from that school. They brought player branding, social media swagger, and full-blown personality into spaces where none of that had ever existed. To supporters, it made them visionaries. To haters, it made them vandals. Coach Prime didn't just revive Jackson State, he electrified it. He didn't just bring recruits to Colorado, he brought an entire new generation of fans. But to critics, he also pushed out kids who didn't fit the plan, ran his program like a show, and made it more about Prime than a team. And with Shedeur carrying that same energy onto the field, tapping the watch, flexing in post games, it only amplified the noise. Some saw confidence, others saw chaos. Some saw legacy, others saw entitlement. But hell, in the end, when it's all said and done, you don't have to love the Sanders family. You don't have to root for them. You don't even have to understand them, but you can't deny them. They didn't sneak through the back door. They kicked it open. They didn't wait for permission. They built their own platform, and every step they took, they made people feel something. They were called arrogant, disruptive, self-centered. They were also called pioneers, icons, trailblazers. But whether you cheered for them or cursed them, you watched. And that's the thing about legacy. It isn't built on what you did, it's built on what you made people feel. The Sanders family didn't just join the game, they changed it. And whatever comes next, one thing's certain: this story is far from over.